I'm going to kind of walk you through exactly what you need to be looking for when you go to recreate your pot. I've got a few things today. I'm not going to be using all of them at all. But I just want to kind of go through a few things and make sure that we understand some of the different elements that we're going to be using today. Our plants here can be planted in the sun or the shade, but as we go through and help you pick out the plants, we're going to need to know that so we can make sure we get you the best plants possible for that area. I also want you to think about the colors that are going on around where this plant's going to live for a while. Is it next to a brown house? Do you have other colors going on in some of your main landscaping? Because we want this to be a focal point. We want it to be beautiful, but we also want it to kind of match with some of the other things that you're having going on. And it doesn't have to be a bunch of red if you've got a lot of red going on, but it should have one element of red if that's going on. So one of the things we've talked about, we've got soil in your pot. I know a lot of people asked what kind of soil. This is potting soil. It's got a lot of perlite and vermiculite in it, and that just helps with drainage in your pot. So it's always really good to have that. Your pot should always have a hole in the bottom. I know a few of you don't have that, and we're going to make sure that we talk about drainage a little bit more later on in the class. First of all, I want to start with the size of pot. A lot of people think, they look at a size of pot like this and they think, oh, maybe 3, maybe 4 plants. This pot will easily take 9 to 15 plants. Okay? So the thing about it is you need a lot of depth in your pot because the roots are going to be going down into your pot. They not necessarily go out of your pot. I selected this color pot because I love this color, and I wanted to kind of play off a couple of different shades in this pot. So I'm going to be using a little bit of this, but I'm going to be using shades of probably these colors to start. And we always want to start with the tallest piece first, and we're going to work around that. But in order to know where I'm going to put that tall piece, I need to know whether this pot is going to be up against a wall and only viewed 180, or whether it's going to be kind of in the center of a location where it's going to be viewed 360. That's going to determine exactly where my tall piece goes and how I want to build around this pot. I would say most people like it 360, so today I'm going to start with the 360. Now, we're looking for the tallest piece first, and again, a lot of that depends on how tall your pot is. A tall piece, somebody could think that this was tall, and in a small pot, this would be kind of tall. But in this pot, we need something just a little bit taller. For today's class, I'm going to select this very, very bright lemon lime cypress. I like the color of it. It's not so matchy with this, and that's okay, the pot. But it is a good evergreen. It's nice and bright. It's going to bring in some color, and it will get a little larger. So I've had these in pots before. They're probably going to get, 2 to 3 feet tall and a little wider. So when we're thinking of that, kind of think about what else you've got going on around that pot. This can be sun or shade. The more sun it has, the brighter it's going to be, okay? Another good suggestion, good selection could be this Nandina. That's got a lot of red in it. So for those of you that are looking for red, this would be kind of a nice choice to put in your center. Before I start planting in, I want to start just arranging things around my pot. So let's say this is going to be my tall, and I want to put in some contrasting colors. So we talked about pulling some color in. I also want to make sure there's a lot of contrast going on, because your eye is very much attracted to contrast when you're doing your design piece. So it's really good to have some bright contrast. So I think with this pot, I might pull in something as dark as that. And this plant is Pixie, Pendulum. This one is actually going to kind of spill over my pot. So we are still going to use those concepts of spill. It's just in this particular case, this is an evergreen. So this is going to stay year-round. This is an evergreen. This is going to stay year-round. And to it, I'm going to add some really bright things. Like I love, love, love this heuchera right here. But I'm not going to put it right next to this, okay? Because I want something, again, that's going to be a little bit of a contrast to that. So I think what I'm going to use is maybe something really bright like that. And have that kind of peek out. And then I want to kind of balance my pot a little bit and maybe put another thing over here. Now remember, this is going to be all the way around 360. Again, I don't want to put matchy-matchy together. So I think what I'm going to do is put a little bit of this sage, which is a nice bright sage. Again, an evergreen kind of plant. And it's going to pick up both of these colors, this color, and again, a lot of contrast. When we talk about design, we don't want everything exactly the same. We don't want the same size leaf. We don't want the same color. We talked about that. We want something a little different as far as the texture goes. So the reason I like this plant is it's very gentle. It's a soft texture. It's not kind of a hard, big texture like this. Small leaf, a little larger leaf. It's kind of trying to mix these things all together. The one thing I do want to have in my pot is a little bit of spikiness and a little bit of fun. And this is a great little plant for that because I like the spikiness to kind of peek through some of the other colors. So when you're looking at it from the front, you're actually able to see a little bit of that spikiness kind of peek through. So this is kind of what I'm thinking about right now. I'm going to look at it again and see what we got going. I've got the spill a little bit here. This is actually ends up being a spill because it's such a weepy kind of plant. This guy is a sweet flag, and it's a carex. And kind of an evergreen mounding plant, kind of a grass kind of thing. What I want to add are a few other things. Remember I said we can put a lot in a pot? When you get your basic in here and potted these in, then we kind of go back and add a little bit of these pops of color. So pansies, this is a fall, winter, annual. When it gets really hot, they're going to die back. But pansies are awesome for, from this time of year all the way to the spring. I know many of you have used them. They go kind of, don't look so great in January, but then in February they just, recreate themselves. They're great. And then, maybe I'll use a little bit of this for contrast. I'm going to kind of see how it goes in there. So once you have your basic layout of your pot, go ahead and take everything back out again. Kind of remember where you put it. And if you don't get exactly the right spot, it's okay. We can work around it. But I want to show you how to plant. And I think a lot of people, and I know this because I've been here for 15, 20 years, a lot of people take a plant out of their pot and they just kind of put it down there, okay? And they don't do anything to the soil, and they just kind of mound the soil up, okay? So what this plant needs, it needs space, and it needs oxygen for its roots, okay? So don't feel bad about getting rid of the soil in your pot, okay? It's actually, the plant will like you a little bit better because of it. If I did not have fertilizer in the soil, this is the time I would be adding fertilizer. I'd put it in, and I'd kind of mush it around the bottom, and then probably go ahead and put a little bit more on top before I was done. So I'm going to go ahead and start my pot. I'm going to now take everything that I did and kind of place it around. Kind of gently put it in. I'm not digging a really deep hole here. If I find some plants that are very root bound, I will. But right now, I'm just going to kind of gently place it in here. This was going to be my spill. This is a pretty big plant. And, you know, go ahead and make as much mess as you want today. It's really all about kind of getting your hands dirty and putting it in. But I want to get a good amount of that root exposed, so this root will fit nicely into my pot. And I want this kind of spilling out the front, so I'm going to put this plant kind of close to the front of that plant, of the pot. Kind of just gently tap your soil around it. We decided that we wanted something a little bright next to that. I'm going to go ahead and put this heuchera. This is called citronelle. Again, evergreen. This is a real pretty one. This one's got a lot of roots here. Now, many times, if you have something that's very root bound, it is okay to take a serrated knife and just cut the bottom right off, okay? Don't feel bad about doing that. I know it seems a little harsh and cruel, but again, what you're trying to do is encourage that growth to go down, not around. So I'm going to take a little bit of citronelle, and I'm just going to kind of put it right here. Again, kind of right next to that plant right here. Okay, and then I had this great plant. Again, a heuchera, evergreen. I think this is called peach melba. They always make these sound so good. And again, kind of rough it up a little bit. Contrast right next to it, right here. Get a little bit more of that purple in there. Working around the pot so you guys can kind of see the back end of the pot, and I won't have to move too much. Here's this great grass. Okay, and that guy's just going to kind of peek right out through. Then I think I want another heuchera here. Same guy. I think this is peach flambe. Excuse me, not peach melba. Peach flambe. Again, rough it up a little bit. I'm just working my way around the pot. Now, once I get everything kind of placed around and kind of in, what I'll do is go back through and add some additional soil. So it's not actually sitting up in your pot, it's actually sitting down. I'm going to put this little sage right here. And again, when you're doing your pots, think about where they're going. Pots by a front door, what a great spot to put herbs. Anytime you walk by, you're going to smell a little bit of that going on. So I've got my basics now of kind of how I want this. Now I'm going to add just a few little touches of the pansies. And again, I'm going to try to pick up this kind of color here. And these little guys can just be tucked around your pot. Just kind of put little pieces of them around. They can stick right in. But these are like the sweet pieces of the container garden because they're little, they give you a lot of color, and they're just kind of happy little guys. And I just kind of go around the edge and kind of tuck them in so they're kind of towards the very front of the pot. Now, 6 of these go a long way. So when you think about, you know, what you're going to add to your pot, kind of think about just I guess the investment that you're making in having 6 little guys that'll kind of continue to go around. And I'm just, again, going to kind of work those pansies all the way around the very top. And because this is a class, I want to get the ones that are showing. And again, rough them up a little bit. Don't feel bad about that. Kind of place them in towards the front and kind of let them peek through. So they all should be kind of peeking through your pot. All right, I've got everything in that I want. Now my last little bit is to just take handfuls of dirt. And I'm going to kind of take handfuls of dirt and I'm just going to work it all the way around my plants. So they'll be not up out of the ground, but kind of down in. And again, just handfuls of dirt and kind of work it around. Tap it down a little bit. Now, if I were going to take this home, I wouldn't water it here. I'm going to ask you to not water it here, but as soon as you get home, go ahead and give your plant and your container some water. So it is, these are all pretty wet, but again, when you plant a plant, it goes into a little bit of a shock. You can imagine we were pulling its roots and pushing it into something else, and it's just kind of nice to be able to give it just a little bit of water. All right, I know I kind of ran through that quickly. I'm going to spend a lot more time with you each individually.